And we are live.
Hello.
Let me just go quickly to my channel for the Hangout link. Oh, and by the way, I don't know if you noticed or not, but I changed out my YouTube name.
I am. Hang on. Oh my God. Sorry. That's stupid kids. I share my laptop with my kids sometimes, so it's ridiculous. I'm so sorry.
It's no problem at all. But I could it seems like you were moving around a lot, so I was barely able to hear you.
Uh,
Are you still there? Hello?
yes, I'm right here.
Okay, I am sending the hang on Twitter, and you could retweet it if you want.
All right, that sounds good.
Yeah, but I mean, this is actually more difficult than Google Hangouts because with Google Hangouts, it was actually much easier because you could actually did they make it more accessible, the Hangout link like more accessible, but with StreamYard, I had to click on my YouTube channel, and I have to like manually, I have to manually, I had to manually go to my YouTube page to find a Hangout link.
All right, can I read you something? Because I just looked up on Twitter. Can I just read you something that somebody sent to me?
Yeah, sure.
Because I told them that they had sent me a tweet and it sounded like total word salad, like it didn't make any sense. And this is the response. How can word salads produce beef? Answer to linguistic term euphemism for philosophy not wanting to say about language, transcend words by means of geometry, back to Plato and beyond. Heidegger and Wittgenstein would agree, so would Hegel and Spinoza. Academics? Snooze. Now, does that make any sense at all? It's not just me, right?
Yeah, it didn't make sense to me either.
Okay. I think he thinks he's very smart.
Yeah, I would presume so.
Mm.
Um,
People are so
so,
strange.
oh, what was that? So I didn't really catch that.
I was mumbling. People are so strange, is what I said.
Oh, yeah. And I had no idea that you had a video like Let's Talk a Culture like while you were away. I started watching a little bits of it, but I only managed to get 5 minutes into it before you pop in. But so far so good, you know.
Yeah, it's really about the Southern culture that produced the Confederacy, because a lot of people talk about when you see something like the Confederate flag or a statue to Robert E. Lee, they'll say something like, "Oh well, we're just really celebrating our culture." So I was like, what does that even mean? What culture? So I sort of go in and take a look. I need to get the second part of that video out this month, but because it's a big topic, but it turned out really long. But it's kind of like, their culture was so defined by and dependent on slavery that there really was no culture that you could separate from that. It was, and if you can imagine what you have to do to yourself to be able to live off of other people and taking their humanity away from them, um, and being violent towards them. Imagine what that does to somebody on the inside. Are they then going to go out the next day and be like, oh, well, I'm just a nice person now. No, it has an effect. It has a psychological effect. So you don't see, like, the South. If you see, for instance, people like Mark Twain or Edgar Allan Poe, those were Southern writers, for instance, that are very famous today, and everybody knows them. But they had to leave the South to become what they were. There was no way to stay in that environment and be a good creative person. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Creative people intentionally left.
Mm.
Anyway, yeah, I haven't heard of that one yet. There are three ones that I normally hear. One I would hear is about heritage, not hate. That's one. Another one
Mm-hmm.
would be um remembering the history. Like you could teach students that these people were bad, but you want to like remember it because you don't want to deface history. You don't want to give anybody the ability to rewrite history. You would want people, and I remember Ben Shapiro saying something along those lines, like when it comes to the Holocaust museums, he wouldn't want them to be erased because he would want, people to remember the horrible things that Adolf Hitler's done. He would want something to remember the Holocaust by. And so it's like, another argument here is like it's about remembering the past. And another thing I heard, the third one and the last one would be it's about states' rights.
Yeah. Well, um, so we could take any of those. As far as you can't really compare a statue of Robert E. Lee to the Holocaust Museum, right? Because the statue of Robert E. Lee doesn't tell you anything except that there was a guy and his name was Robert E. Lee, and here's a statue of him, right? That's not, what are you going to learn from that? It doesn't tell you what he did or who he was or what he stood for. Whereas if you go into the Holocaust Museum or into Auschwitz, they show you they're taking you around and showing you the actual history of this place and what happened there and who did this and why was it this way and all of these other things. And they show you in a way that, you get the actual physical sense, the feeling of what it must have been like to walk through those gates and to live in these horrible places. Um, and so it makes the story more visceral to people, like they can feel it. Um, but that's totally different than just walking by a statue. You know what I mean? That doesn't give you the same thing, and it's really a lot of those statues were put up specifically they were put up to change history, to wipe out history. You see, they were put up, a lot of them, by the Daughters of the Confederacy, which is a group that really wanted to make it out that the Confederacy was a much nicer thing than it was. And one of their projects was putting up all these fucking statues everywhere. Like the South is just blanketed with these stupid things. And they were constant reminders to people of who was in charge around here. And they made it out as if the Confederacy was this great and noble cause, which it wasn't. It was about slavery. At the end of the day, there is no cause or aspect to the Civil War that you can't bring back to slavery. It was at the core of the problem. It was at the core of their culture. It was at the core of their heritage. And I understand that that's a really hard pill to swallow. Like, I get it that you wouldn't want to look back in the past and say, my God, my ancestors were the fucking worst. Apologies if I should have, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't swear on your channel. But yeah, like look back and say, oh my God, my ancestors were terrible people. Nobody wants that, but it doesn't help anything to pretend that they were better than they are. And that's really what those statues are about. They're about pretending to a nobility that never existed and changing history from something, from the dark truth, the dark reality that it was, to something far better and more noble that never happened.
Yeah, nobody would want three and go, man, my relative was really, really horrible. People would rather romanticize history and look back and view their relatives as more awesome than they really were.
Sure. I mean, you know, at a certain point, you just have to let it go and just say the past is the past. I can't change it. I can only learn from it.
Yeah, and by the way, somebody in the chat left a strange comment. I didn't understand what they were saying, but they said, "Can we live in I'm not familiar with that word, but Gatsaka now?
Oh
Hey,
my
if
God. I'm being harassed. Just get rid of it.
uh I
Don't,
don't know how.
oh, sorry. Yeah, don't worry about it. It's just
Oh, just ignore it.
I don't know what else to do. I'm being harassed by these weird people who um just won't leave me alone.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to stress you out like that. So I have no
Uh
idea. I've never
it's
seen his name before.
yeah, it's just people are very strange. It's just well, you know what it's like to be just harassed by people.
Oh yeah, that's a part of the reason why I changed my YouTube channel name before you would probably recognize the channel name as Ren Michaelis,
Mhm.
but then it's kind of like you remember how I had that stalker who that guy who stalked me for 10 months. And not only did
Mhm.
he stalk me for 10 months, but he impersonated me on Twitter. Or at least, I mean, there were like a group of people but working together, so I don't know if he specifically was behind the impersonator account, but I do remember, and I'm still grateful to this very day of you calling it out, where you were like, the difference between, me and the imposter is that my name ends with an S and
Mhm.
that person's name ends with a Z. And, you can look at my accounts, and my accounts was created in 2016, but that account was like created in 2019, which was new at the time, and that person really was going around trying to convince people that they were me. But with the videos like harassing me, it's kind of a lot like they're basically trying to, well, the guy was trying to make me look like I was evil incarnate. So the name is just satire.
Yeah. It's just I don't understand what people get out of doing this sort of thing, but apparently they get something out of it. So,
Yeah, it's kind of like because when people want to harass you, one of the things that they go for is character assassination. They always want to make you seem significantly worse than what you really are. They really want to make you look far worse than than you really are. Like to the point where it would be completely unrecognizable to anybody in real life. Like when it comes to like your parents or your real life friends or even some of the people at work, they just hates on you to the point that you are completely unrecognizable. and so it's kind of like, the videos he made about me was just pretty much saying that I'm evil, so it's like, okay, I'm gonna change my name to Evil Incarnates, but it's satire, it's like it's pretty much a humorous name, it's kind of like, yeah, I'm Satan, like, ooh,
You are scary.
Yeah, I mean, because I mean, if anybody really paid attention to the video, it's really over theatrical and melodramatic because it's kind of like she's a liar, a hypocrite, a deceiver, a manipulator, and it's like, it's kind of like, so the way he described me, it's like I am completely void, or I have like zero good traits. I have zero redeeming qualities. He's basically describing me as evil, so it's like, yeah, I'm just gonna make fun of the description.
Yeah, I remember that obsessive person, and like I, I think I watched a small amount of their video just to see what was going on, and it came off as completely unhinged. Just
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to break you off there, but
yeah,
I was having this conversation with Social Equalizer, where it's kind of like I didn't watch the whole video. I skipped around to where he shows his face, and he was actually like red in the face, like red in the face and stuttering, talking about me, and he was like completely really angry, like
mm,
really, really angry. It's like he was like red, like red in the face and angry and stuttering, complaining about me. And it kind of spooked Social Equalizer. It's kind of like, what's wrong with that guy? Not to
yeah.
mention that there's like that 5 hour live stream he made about me. And it's like he made a 5 hour live stream about me. It's like, go get some help.
That's really it. Like, just why are you so obsessed with this person who's done nothing to like? It's not like did she steal money from you? Did she shoot your dog? No, nothing is, what are you so upset about?
Yes, like it's weird to be that upset over a person who lives, well, I wouldn't say the other side of the country per se, but we are like a few states apart, We're actually like a few states apart, So it's like, why on earth would he care so much about a person who lives hundreds of miles away from you? There's like no points, it'd be somewhat different if I deliberately took a car and drove over his pet dog,
Yeah.
like then it would make a little bit more sense. But the way he conducted himself over, I mean, I live miles away from him, I mean, unless it's up there with, unless it's up there like with pedophilia, or like
Yeah.
something like really bad like pedophilia, uh, but a 5 hour live stream and all of those obsessive videos, it's kind of like, dude, get some help. You need to see a psychiatrist. And I mean, like, that isn't even me like being a dick, I mean, but it's really unhinged, like, it's obsessive to the point where it's kind of like you need to seek treatment.
Mm. Yeah, it's very, and I mean, it is unsettling, and no matter what they tell you, it's kind of scary to be harassed by people who are just bizarre and you don't know anything about them and they just are obsessed, and it's so fucking weird. It's so weird. And I just don't like it. Like, you know what? And if people continue to do it after you've said, "Hey, stop it. Like, just don't have anything to do with me again," then that's harassment.
Yeah, because it's kind of like, I remember the last thing I said it to him was like, "You're dead to me." But even though I said like, "You're dead to me," like he would harass. Like I had to block him on Twitter. I had to block him on YouTube. Even though when YouTube doesn't really do anything, like
Yeah.
when I block a person on YouTube, I clearly do not want that person to see my videos. It's like if you're blocked, but you're only blocked from commenting, and you can still make videos harassing me. Well, I mean, like, clearly, if you're blocked, I don't care about your view counts. Your view count means nothing to me. So
Mm.
I blocked this person on Twitter, blocked this person on YouTube, block this person like on Discord, and then like on Ask FM, there would be this anonymous person leaving me like these weird, creepy questions, and it all started, this same time like the harassment started. So the time he started harassing me, I got these strange questions on Ask FM, like what makes you cry, like because SKFM is supposed to be anonymous, and anonymous
Mhm.
questions will be like, "What makes you cry? Like, how could I get you to cry?" And it's kind of like, or it's kind of like other weird questions, like, "Is there any place where you haven't blocked people?" When really, the only people I have blocked on YouTube would be him and his friend group, because his friends started harassing me, and it became like a group harassment because they wanted to harass me to give him a solid.
Yeah, I don't get it, but I won't use Ask FM or Curious Cat or those other things because I don't know. People are. It's one of those things where a few people are who are lousy are enough to just drive everybody else away, and then the next thing you know, you only have these jerks. I don't want to talk
Yeah,
to.
exactly. Because it's kind of like SFM, it is fun when you get those fun questions. When you get like really fun questions, you could really enjoy the sites. But because it's anonymous, it's like a two-way sword. Being anonymous makes it easier for a person to stalk and harass you, and then they can't really pretend to be a different person because it's anonymous. So they could create another accounts and another accounts and another accounts and another accounts, because
Mm,
they had to use their names. Then it's kind of a lot like, if they are stuck using their names, it would make them look bad. It would look bad that they're blocked on Twitter, blocked on YouTube, blocked on Discord, and then they're still trying to contact you. It's like, it would look at like, seek some help.
mm. But not for me. Just leave me alone.
Yeah, it reached a point where I just, removed the anonymity from AskFM, but of course, when you remove the anonymous elements from it, that's when um everybody doesn't want to use it, because again, I can get the point. The majority of people want to ask you the fun and silly questions like, what are you gonna do for summer vacation, and whatnot. But it's kind of a lot like that. When people start leaving you really creepy, really disturbing questions, it's like, okay, I'm gonna remove the anonymous elements of it. Then like other people don't want to talk to you, and it's sad because some of these people seem like really fun and whatnot, but then it's
Yeah.
kind of like, well, whatever, it's over.
Yeah. It's too bad, but what can you do?
Yeah. But it really opened my eyes to, because I mean, I have moved. I wouldn't say that I've moved terribly to the left. Like, I'm still not a progressive. I'm still the centristy type. But it did, it's kind of like it does show you who your friends are. Like it's like that old saying that bad times show you who your friends are. Like, who like bad you when you are going through a tough time, that shows you who's really your friend and who isn't your friend. Because it's kind of a lot like you stood up for me, like you called out the impersonator, but it's kind of a lot, yeah. And like it was you and David Sherratt, and there was
Yep.
like this person. Oh, Palix, I think it begins with a P. That's all I remember. It's a white guy, black hair, and it's like Palix or something. But it's
I
kind
know who you're talking about, but I can't remember. I can't remember his name.
of
Something Greek, maybe Palix Athen? I don't know.
oh, but you do know how somebody he is like a white guy. I think he had like a mustache, short black hair, glasses. I think he looks like that. And he sounds like Palace or whatnot. And
Mm.
he was like, yeah, like I retweeted it, but it's kind of like it was pretty much the progressive community, you know.
Yeah.
And it's weird because like I started off as an anti-SJW channel. I don't know how well you remembered those days. We had like,
Yeah.
huh?
But you were never that bad like somewhere, you know.
Yeah, because even in my anti-SJW days, we were still friends. Like we still got along even back when I was like, retweeting Sargon and retweeting Bering. And I'm glad that you never passed judgments. I'm glad that you never passed judgments over me for retweeting Sargon or retweeting Bering. I'm glad that you didn't go like, well, now that you retweeted Sargon and Bering, I'm gonna block you and not talk to you anymore. Like, I'm glad that you judged me based on how I treat you.
Yeah, I mean, there was that, and there was also when you were retweeting them, you weren't retweeting nasty things. You were retweeting things about, we should have free speech or, that sort of thing. The less incendiary things that they would say or talk about, at least that I saw. It was never something like mean or cruel to some person. It was always like, it's important to let everybody have their opinion and let people talk and have free speech. And, that's what we're about. And you would retweet that. And I think eventually you saw that they weren't sincere more than anything, because they really are not. Want, uh, they want to be able to say the N word in public, but they, they don't really care about my free speech or other people who disagree with them having free speech. They just pretend to care. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, I didn't hear the first part, but I heard most of it. I
Oh,
heard
sorry.
most of it. I just didn't hear the very beginning.
I was just saying that if I can remember, I think I was saying that that you would talk about free speech. The things that you would retweet weren't the mean-spirited things. They weren't the vicious attacks on people.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was really surprised. I was really surprised and taken aback by Sargon giving you a hard time. Like, I didn't even think he was like that. Like, I really didn't think he was like that. He just really caught me off guard because when I was new to his channel, he defended, like, I think her name was like Bahar Mustafa. And, it's kind of a lot like he was like, I stand by Baha Mustafa, and she was a feminist and really critical of him, or I think so. And he still defended her. He still
Mm.
defended her, even though she was like a feminist, and he even scolded like Goodfella, like a Goodfella. It's like I don't care. She could rot. I don't care about her. I don't care about her
Mm.
free speech. And he scolded Goodfellas, saying, like, no, 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 we got to stick by our principles. But then his content changed. He became more aggressive and more obnoxious, like,
Mm.
I don't even know how, but he actually managed to lose a debate to Richard Spencer. And I don't even
Yeah.
know like how ill prepared do you have to be, like how ill prepared do you have to be to lose the debates on against Richard Spencer? Not only that, but he didn't even do all that well with what's it, Richard Carrier? Like he was a
Oh,
Midcon with Richard Carrier, and throughout the live scream, he just kept screaming, "Shut up! Shut up! Shut up! Shut up! Shut up!" And at times that he wasn't screaming "Shut up" to Carrier's face, he was acting like a spoiled, petulant brat. Like even his own fans were criticizing him. Like even his fan base was like Carl Benjamin that triggered SJW Snowflake. Like even his some of his fans was a lot like making fun of how ridiculous he was carrying himself. Not only that, but like there are people who lost respect for Sargon. Like there are people like I don't want to put words in their mouth. I don't want to put words in their mouth, so I'll just leave their names out. But I would see people who would be a lot like they used to be a Sargon fan, but the way he carries himself and conducts himself in debates, and also some of the personal decisions he made, like defending and promoting Stefan Molyneux while not caring about the free speech of progressives, is kind of like, well, like why do you care about the free speech of Stefan Molyneux, who's like a white nationalist or like a white supremacist, but you're not gonna, like you're gonna be like not care about the free speech of, I forgot his name because he has uh, an unusual name, but I think it starts with the letter C, and he's like a college professor, and like Sargon of Akkad, like made a YouTube video about like why the college professor should get fired over a joke. I do remember the joke though. The joke was, "I am dreaming of a white," and I won't repeat it because YouTube
yeah,
is going to be like, I will probably get I'll probably get flagged down if I repeat the whole entire joke, but I am dreaming of a white, and then I'll leave it there. I'll leave it there
yeah.
because most people have already heard it, and I don't want to get my channel flagged down. But it's kind of a lot like, well, you care about the free speech of Stefan Molyneux, but you don't care about the free speech of this college professor. And I followed you because it's kind of a lot like, although you're consistent, so it's like it's not just like that one thing. It's not like he did one thing and it's like, well, it's over. But it's kind of like how he treated you, the losing
Mm.
the debates to Richard Spencer, the way he conducted himself with, Richard Carrier. Then this kind of like it all
Mm.
begins to add up. It starts adding up because now you're not overlooking like that one thing. You're overlooking so many other things, and not that, but it's kind of like with his fan base, it's so hard to criticize him
Oh
without
yeah.
being called an SJW snowflake. It's just like you can't even have a discussion, and there's supposed to be pro discussion. They keep saying that they're pro discussion, but you try to criticize Sargon of Akkad or Blair White or whomever, or back when they did it, like Sean Head, like back when Sean Head was considered an anti-SJW. It's like you try to criticize any of them, you just get bombarded with hate. It's kind of like,
Yeah.
how dare you criticize any of them, they just just it's a harassment, well, not harassment because harassment involves a repetitive behavior. For it to be harassment, it's got to be repetitive. It needs to be ongoing, but it would be really what's it, incendiary. It would be really like really vicious and malicious.
Yeah, I have a video. I'm kind of planning on doing it. It's about sort of the cancel culture people and how all of them have people they want to cancel. You know what I mean? There's literally no cancel culture people who are like, I hate cancel culture, that won't then turn around and say, you know, and I want to get this person fired, or and we should boycott this. It's just endless hypocrisy. is all that it is. And it
Yeah,
doesn't. Mm.
oh, go ahead, go ahead.
No, it's kind of mind-boggling that they're so blatant about it.
Well, I mean, to be fair, we're all hypocrites. Like was like reading articles on hypocrisy because, we all do it to some degree because most people are unaware of it. Like most people are unaware that they are being hypocritical. And not only that, but I heard it also involves how our minds work and how our brains are programmed. That our brains um keep us seeing ourselves in the most positive lights, because the moment you see yourself in a negative light on a regular basis, you might end yourself. So to prevent yourself from poisoning yourself, your brain focuses on all the good you do, and how consistent you've been, rather than focusing on all your flaws, because your brain wants to try to keep you alive as long as possible.
Ah, that sounds interesting. Um, I don't doubt that that's true.
Well, I could send you the link, because what happened is I collected a bunch of links on hypocrisy, because like that was like one of the numerous things I've been called. I've been called a hypocrite, a liar, a manipulator, a deceiver, and whatnot. But
Mm.
more often than not, when people are hypocritical, it's not even deliberately, because then then that would be duplicity. That would be duplicitous or being fake, and there.
Right.
Yeah, usually when people are hypocritical, they're usually very much unaware that any hypocrisy took place. And then not only that, but I'm not sure if there is a difference between hypocrisy and what's the doublethink, because like one,
Mm.
uh, what was that? I didn't catch you.
What?
Oh, I thought you said something. And well, what I was saying is, I don't know if there's a difference between hypocrisy and doublethink, or if hypocrisy and doublethink are the same thing. Because like, or maybe hypocrisy and doublethink are two different things.
Well, I think hypocrisy and doublethink are two different things, but they're certainly related. But doublethink came from 1984, I believe, and it's more like believing two things that cannot possibly be true at the same time, and doing so intentionally. Let me look it up and make sure I've got the right. Okay, what is doublethink? I don't know if you ever read 1984. You might want to.
When it comes to, I enjoyed Animal Farm. Like Animal
Mm.
Farm is like my favorite George Orwell novel. Like that's the
Mm.
one I got really into. But then it's kind of a lot like, I think that one of the characters was fantasizing about raping another character. I'm not sure, but because like the guy's like, I hate her so much. It's like he went on and on and on about how much he hated a girl, and then he said, "Oh, now I realize why I hate her so much." And he basically described a rape scene, and I just like lost interest, and I just started reading something else.
Yeah, I can understand that for sure. So, doublethink is the acceptance of or mental capacity to accept contrary opinions or beliefs at the same time, especially as a result of um, political indoctrination. So, I'm going to look up the Wikipedia. Mm. We are. I was hoping they had like a good example of it. to tell deliberate lies while genuinely believing in them. So if you said, I'm going to go lie to Rin Michaelis today, but what as you sat there lying, you believe those lies, to forget any fact that has become inconvenient, and then when it becomes necessary again, to draw it back from oblivion for as long as it's needed, et cetera, et cetera. All this is indispensably necessary. So, for even using the word doublethink is necessary to exercise doublethink. For by using the word, one admits that one is tampering with reality. By a fresh act of doublethink, one erases this knowledge, and so on indefinitely, with the lie always one leap ahead of the truth. So, for one thing, it's as you say, I don't think people necessarily tend to think of themselves as hypocrites, right? They don't. Usually, it's something you would have to point out to somebody, like that's kind of hypocritical. And a lot of people just won't do it. They won't believe you, no matter what. Whereas doublethink is at least somewhat intentional, and you know what you're doing, and you're doing it as sort of an exercise in being this member of this state.
Yeah, because it's kind of like if you try to point out the hypocrisy in somebody else, no matter how gently you do it, like sometimes I'm doing it not to be mean, but it's kind of like I would be kind of like, don't you think that that's probably hypocritical? But people that like one person like got very mad and snapped at me, and like like really really angry when I would say it's even using it as, a malicious way, but it's kind of a lot like, I'm just seeing something, you know, there, it's like
Right.
a contradiction there. And it's kind of like, well, are you saying like if I notice something that I'm not supposed to say something? And I think that that was your criticism to what was her name? I forgot her name, but you said that she's really sensitive. You said that she's really sensitive, really emotional, and she's impossible to criticize. All I remember is that she's a black leftist.
Uh oh. Well, yeah, I think I know who you're talking about. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to start big beef with her or anything. Um, but yes, if you're just in general, if your reaction to criticism is kind of to go over the top with it and to get very upset about it, for instance, there have been people who have criticized me, and intentionally, even though I didn't agree with their criticism, I thanked them for bringing it to me, and I tried to be really calm about it because I don't want people to be afraid to bring criticism to me. You know what I mean? I want to be somebody who is open to hearing criticism, because sometimes people criticize me and they're absolutely right. And then I go, oh, yeah, okay. I'm sorry. That was dumb.
Yeah, same here. Like sometimes people criticize me and they're right. Like if you're criticizing me and you're right, it's like yeah, like that was really really dumb. But sometimes sometimes it's not the time. Like I do try to be aware if a person is like really emotional. Like if you are having a bad day, I think that it would be like a really bad time to start criticizing you if you're
Yeah.
clearly having a bad day. It's kind of like, oh, you're having a bad day. I suggest that you let off steam, as because like then it's like
Mm.
it's a really bad time to start criticizing somebody.
Yeah. And I've come back. I forget. I did this just recently with I'm better at pictures than words for remembering, so I can remember that this is like a horsey, like a seahorse avatar, but I don't remember their name. But I was a bit over the top being a dick. And, afterwards I came back and I said, I had a terrible day and I'm sorry. And I shouldn't have treated you that way because you weren't being a jerk. I was just like going off and they were fine with that. I think if you can admit to yourself that you're not perfect and apologize, that's a good thing. And there are some people who really, you can't criticize them. They overreact every time. They get very emotional when criticized, and that's not a good thing, because everybody needs criticism and they need to be able to accept it. And it is a skill. It is something you have to learn how to do. I get it, because nobody likes it. Absolutely zero people on this planet are like, you know what I love? Criticism. Yay. Nobody. It's something that people have an ego. Like you say, your ego is there and it tries to protect you from hearing bad things about yourself. So, you got to kind of like, you got to kind of tell it to, like, all right, that's fine, but you're just going to have to shut up and sit down, because I need to be able to hear this just in case there's something I need to fix about myself, because it's that much worse. A lot of times when there are people who double down and double down and double down, honestly, I think a lot of people, like for instance, Sargon, who you brought up earlier, I think if Sargon could hear criticism, um, he would be 100% better off, you know? But he won't hear it, he won't listen to it. And so I think he was genuinely taken by surprise. He'll say he wasn't, but I think he was genuinely taken by surprise by how much, when he ran for office, people hated him. You know, before he started running, he was saying, "Oh yeah, I think we have a great chance to win, and this will be great." And then after, he was completely just people throwing fish and milkshakes at him for several months and getting no votes, or very very few votes. He was like, "Oh, I always knew. I just wanted to do it for whatever reason." Um, but it's like, no, you didn't know because you weren't open to hearing what people were really saying to you about some of these things that you were doing and saying. You had your bubble of people who agreed with you, and that was enough. So that the fact that you couldn't hear outside of that bubble, you couldn't hear that people were like, when he says, I wouldn't even, that time, most people found that deplorable and a terrible thing to say to someone, but he would not hear it. He just wouldn't. So,
Yeah, yeah, I would agree with that. Like, Sargon of God does sing out in an echo chamber, because you could have an echo chamber of your own fan base, because you know that your fan base is going to be a lot like, really protective of any criticism, but it also made it, like a toxic environment. That's the reason why you see people would go ex anti SJW or former anti SJW, because it's kind of a lot like, it's kind of like
mhm.
it's like you they do the very thing that they complain about, having an echo chamber, not being able to handle criticism. It's kind of it is almost like animal form, almost like vaguely like animal form. It's like, hey, we're not supposed to do these things, like, remember, like, when we were all really new, when, having an echo chamber was something we're supposed to be against. And
Yeah.
it's kind of like, like, remember how we were supposed to, have discussions and dialogue, but then it's kind of like, now it's kind of like, if you criticize Sargon avocado at all, even if you are doing it as an anti-SJW, like, and not, but it's like, during the early days of anti-SJWism, there what were old live streams where they would sit around disagreeing with each other. Like, you would see, like, like Sargon of Akkad would, I think, like Wizard of Cos, and like
Mm.
Crofton T, and some other people that disappeared because they never got as big and as famous, and they would be all having like disagreements with each other, and it would be like a healthy dialogue. But then after a while, Sargon became so big and so huge that it's kind of like when you disagree with him, even if you're an anti-SJW yourself, and even if you're trying to improve the community, it's kind of like it's not just me. There's like this other, anti-SJW who had like all of this anti-SJW content, but it's kind of like you try to criticize Sargon, saying like maybe he shouldn't have said I wouldn't even blah blah blah. And it's like, it's like dog-piled insults. It's no, hey, let's sit around and have a conversation like it was to the very beginning. It becomes, do not criticize Sargon at all, point
Yeah.
blank, period. We don't want to hear it. And that is probably why he lost, because it's like, any criticism is viewed as a bad thing, when really criticism is a good thing, because we're not perfect. The only time when we could really erase criticism is if we're perfect. But given that we're human, we're flawed, we have things we could work on. Criticism is kind of like, hey, this is what you could improve on. This is how we could be better. And sure, sometimes there's the navigation, because, there's going to be the genuine good faith criticism. And then there's going to be like, people being, an asshole, like, do you know how to create a better society? Drink bleach, drink bleach for
Right.
a better society. So it's kind of like there's going to be the people who give you genuine criticism, like, like, I feel like you could do this better, but they're saying it because they really want to see you succeed and improve. But then there's going to be the bad fade, more toxic, abusive type of, criticism in quotations, which really is like a bruise, where it's like, for a better society, maybe you should jump off a what, it's like, well, now you're just harassing the person.
Yeah. Sorry, I made a mistake of clicking over to the chat. Sorry about that.
Yeah, like
That's
I
my fault.
just you can see, I don't know how it looks like in your window, but I just saw that it was all from the one person, so I just ignored it.
Yeah. Yep,
Yeah, I
yep.
just ignored it. I'm sorry that the person's giving you a hard time, but well, I mean, when it comes to chess, it I ignored it the whole time. I didn't read anything he said, so I was oblivious the whole entire time. And, when people do that on Twitter, I just block them.
Mm. It's a lot better on Twitter when you can block people, honestly, and just like block them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, when it comes to YouTube, they have a poor blocking system, because when you block the person, they can still see your videos. And it's like, if I block somebody, I do not want to, them to see my videos, because you put a new video out, they want to respond to it. You put a new video out, they want to respond to that one. It's like, look, dude, I want you to go away and leave me alone, not use your fans or your followers to harass me by proxy.
Yeah. So, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, I mean, the YouTube system could be better, but it just seems like it keeps getting worse and worse and worse. Now I see like more progressives complaining about free speech, like, because like there would be progressives who wanted to call out, the neo-Nazis on a platform, but if they tried to, call out neo-Nazis, they would get their YouTube censored.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It is more and more difficult, I think, to navigate YouTube and keep them from taking your channel down. They've become very, very difficult. They don't care anything. I really don't think they care much about fair use. It's very hard to use anything and not have your channel taken down. So I don't even really bother trying anymore. It's like, which is difficult if you want to say, um, do a movie review and you can't show any of the scenes from the movie, that becomes very difficult to do the review because people don't know what you're talking about, you know?
Yeah, I mean, there's this one person, Cinema Sins. You know, we can't have Cinema Sins anymore because if you try to do a movie, is my audio good? Oh, if you try to have Cinema Sins now, well, your video would get taken down for copyrights,
Oh,
or it's
yeah.
kind of like you cannot also have background music. Well, I mean, it depends on the band, really, because some bands are really, really nice about it. Like Ghost. Ghost is really, really nice about the whole copyright fair use thing. But you know,
Mhm.
there are some bands, like I believe like the Goo Goo Dolls, that like, you know, I had a really faint background music using the Google Dolls, and they gave me like a community. No, no, they gave me a copyright strike. And it's like,
Mm.
really? You could barely hear it, you know? And it's kind of like there's a copy of it on BitChutes, you know? And it's like, if I were to send you the copy that's on BitChutes, you would realize you could barely hear it. So it's like you could barely hear it. Why did it get taken down for copyright? Because, you know, like, back when school presentations, I remember doing presentations for high school, and background music just makes the presentation easier, you know?
Mm.
It makes it more interesting, it gets people more engaged, and people like the presentation more. You know, even back when I was even when I was a crossing guard for the police department, um you know, like I was like doing school traffic patrol for the police departments, and I would get to participate in the police banquets on Christmas, and they would have a slideshow, and they would be playing heavy metal because you know a slideshow without any music would be really dull and boring. You know, it's like if I
Yep.
have a YouTube video and there is no background music and people are just stuck hearing my voice. I mean, there are going to be people who hates my voice. There are going to be people who are like, no, I can't stand the sound of your voice. And it's like, you know, having like that nice, you know, background music, you know, can make a difference between how much a person does and doesn't enjoy the video.
Yeah. Yeah, I try. I've given up on things like background music. They make me very nervous. I just assume at this point, if I have anything, it's going to get taken. And I don't know. It's just it's not even that I mind so much. If the rules stayed clear and consistent, I would never care because I would know what to do, right? But like at this point, nobody knows. Nobody knows what the rules are except, you better not break them. That's all.
Okay, okay. Here's another problem with the rules. The problem is that you could get punished for things that happened like years ago. Like there would be people who would get their whole entire channel taken away based off videos that they posted a decade ago, even
Mhm.
though they keep changing their rules. And it's like people are like, hey, wait a minute, that's not fair. How come you're punishing a person for a video that they made a decade ago when YouTube had different rules then?
Yeah. And this was something that everybody did 10 years ago and nobody said anything and it was fine. And now it's, oh, now we can't do it. So,
Yeah, like at least it should be like a warning, or at least you know it should be like you know like it just locks the video, where it's just like
yeah,
YouTube locks the
just
video.
tell me to put it on like mute or something or turn it off or put it on private or whatever. I don't care, you know?
Yeah, but at least with Twitter, it would be hard for anybody to suspend your accounts based off older tweets. Like that's the one thing that I do like about Twitter over YouTube. I just hate all of the ads that I'm getting now because what they do is like
Oh, what's going on,
people
honey?
know that people need to know that humans use that people use ad block. So what they do is that companies will create multiple Twitter accounts. Like there'll be Netflix, then there'll be Netflix movies. Oh,
Oh, hi, honey. My son came in.
oh yeah, it seems like your son came in. I'm sorry, are you busy right now?
I'm. It's been about an hour, so I think my kids are starting to. I told them it would be about an hour, so now they want. They're all like, "Come on out now, mom." It's difficult. I'll tell you something. It's difficult to have kids during a pandemic, but
Oh,
hey,
oh yeah, because you had to homeschool your kids.
yeah, yeah. So what are you gonna do?
Yeah, yeah. But you do have a very lovely home, like I mean, I've seen your live stream with Michael Rowlands, and you talking about your kids and how wonderful and amazing they are.
Yeah, they're cute. You're cute. He's playing with his baby fox, so. I do gotta go, I think. I'm sorry to cut you off this way. Uh,
Yeah,
but
I think we could have gone on longer, but it's like, yeah, there's a pandemic. You had to homeschool your kids, so it's
mm, I did have fun, though. It was good having a chance to talk to a grown up.
understandable.
So that's always good.
All right, so bye to. I mean, we have 4 viewers now, so bye to the 4 people watching.
Goodbye, everybody.